Lisa Carter walked through the metal corridors of the Galactic Military Academy. Her boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor as she carried her training gear to the combat hall. The academy was huge, built inside a mountain on Centauri Prime. Thousands of cadets from many different planets lived and trained here. She had been at the academy for 6 months now. Earth was new to the galactic community, so there were only 12 human cadets among the thousands of alien students. Most of the other species had been part of the galactic military for hundreds of years. They knew the rules, the customs, and how things worked. Humans were still learning. The other cadets stared at Lisa as she passed. She was used to it by now. Humans looked different from most aliens. They were smaller than the giant rock-like Kronar species, but bigger than the tiny flying Zephyrians. Her brown hair and green eyes were unusual colors in a galaxy full of purple, blue, and silver beings. Lisa entered the combat training hall. It was a large room with soft mats on the floor and weapons hanging on the walls. About 50 cadets were already there, stretching and preparing for the day's exercises. She found an empty spot and began her warm-up routine. "Look at the human," whispered a blue-skinned Altarian cadet to his friend. "She moves so strangely." Lisa heard the comment but ignored it. She had learned to tune out the whispers and stares. Instead, she focused on her breathing and muscle preparation. Back on Earth, she had trained in martial arts since she was 5 years old. Her instructors had taught her discipline, focus, and how to use an opponent's strength against them. The academy instructors were mostly from the Vorthak species. They were tall, scaled beings with sharp claws and teeth. Their green skin was covered in natural armor, and their yellow eyes seemed to glow in dim light. The Vorthak had been warriors for thousands of years, and they ran the military academy with strict rules and harsh discipline. Commander Zexthul entered the hall. He was the largest Vorthak Lisa had ever seen, standing nearly 8 feet tall. His scales were darker than the others, almost black, and scars covered his arms and face. When he walked, his claws clicked on the floor. The room became quiet as soon as he appeared. "Cadets, line up for combat assessment," Commander Zexthul announced. His voice was deep and rough, like grinding stones. "Today we will test your hand-to-hand combat skills. The weak will be identified and given extra training." Lisa joined the line with the other cadets. She noticed how most of them looked nervous. Their eyes were wide and some were trembling slightly. The Vorthak method of training involved a lot of intimidation. Instructors used their natural weapons and size to make cadets submit quickly. The commander began calling pairs of cadets to the center mat. Lisa watched as they fought. Most matches ended quickly when one cadet became too scared to continue fighting. The Vorthak believed that fear taught respect and discipline. "Cadet Carter," Commander Zexthul called out. "You will face Cadet Thornax." Lisa stepped forward. Thornax was a Kronar, one of the rock-like beings. He was twice her size and covered in what looked like stone armor. His species was known for their strength and durability. The other cadets whispered among themselves, clearly expecting Lisa to lose quickly. The match began. Thornax charged forward, using his size advantage to try to overwhelm Lisa. But she had fought bigger opponents before. She moved to the side at the last second, letting Thornax's momentum carry him past her. As he stumbled, she grabbed his arm and used a simple throw technique to send him to the mat. The hall was silent for a moment. Then Thornax got up, confused but not hurt. He charged again, more carefully this time. Lisa waited until he was close, then dropped low and swept his legs. The big Kronar crashed to the ground with a loud thud. "Match to Cadet Carter," Commander Zexthul announced. His voice showed no emotion, but Lisa noticed his yellow eyes studying her more carefully. Lisa helped Thornax to his feet. The Kronar cadet looked surprised but not angry. "How did you do that?" he asked. "I am much stronger than you." "Strength is not everything," Lisa replied quietly. "Sometimes technique matters more." The commander called more matches. Lisa was paired with 3 more opponents, each from different species. She defeated all of them using similar techniques. She never tried to overpower her opponents. Instead, she used their own force against them, redirecting their attacks and finding weak points in their defenses. After the exercises ended, Lisa gathered her gear and prepared to leave. She could feel eyes watching her as she walked toward the exit. The other human cadets looked proud. Some of the alien cadets seemed impressed. But Lisa noticed that Commander Zexthul was still staring at her with those glowing yellow eyes. In the corridor outside, her roommate Kate Johnson caught up with her. Kate was another human cadet with blonde hair and blue eyes. She had been struggling with the academic parts of their training but was getting better. "That was amazing, Lisa," Kate said. "I have never seen anyone defeat 4 opponents in a row like that. The other cadets are talking about it." "It was just training," Lisa replied. "I used what I learned back home." "But did you see how Commander Zexthul was looking at you?" Kate asked. "I think you got his attention." "I am not sure that is a good thing." Lisa nodded. She had noticed the commander's intense stare. In her 6 months at the academy, she had learned that getting noticed by Vorthak instructors was usually bad news. They did not like cadets who stood out too much, especially ones who won when they were expected to lose. That night in their shared room, Lisa lay on her narrow bed and thought about the day. She knew she had performed well, but she also knew it might cause problems. The academy worked on a system where alien species were ranked by their perceived military value. Humans were near the bottom of that ranking because they were new and relatively small, but Lisa knew something the aliens did not understand yet. Humans came from a world with higher gravity than most planets. They had evolved as persistence hunters, able to keep going when other predators gave up, and they had developed fighting techniques over thousands of years of warfare. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but she had a feeling that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Commander Zexthul had noticed her now, and that meant her quiet days at the academy were probably over. The next morning arrived too quickly for Lisa's liking. She woke up before the alarm, as she always did, and began her daily routine. While Kate was still sleeping, Lisa did push-ups and sit-ups in the small space between their beds. Exercise helped her think clearly and prepared her body for whatever the day might bring. In the mess hall, Lisa noticed the whispers following her wherever she went. News of her victories in combat training had spread through the academy overnight. Cadets from different species looked at her with curiosity, respect, or sometimes suspicion. She kept her head down and ate her breakfast quietly. "The human is getting too much attention," she heard a Vorthak instructor say to another at the staff table. "Commander Zexthul is not pleased." Lisa pretended not to hear, but her stomach tightened. She had expected this. In the 6 months since arriving at the academy, she had learned that the Vorthak did not like surprises. They preferred when things went according to their plans and expectations. The morning classes went normally. Lisa attended lectures on galactic history, military strategy, and alien biology. She took careful notes and answered questions when called upon. Her instructors seemed to treat her the same as always, but she could feel an undercurrent of tension in the air. After lunch, all combat cadets were ordered to report to the main training hall. This was unusual. Normally they had smaller group sessions in different rooms, but today everyone was gathering in the largest training space the academy had. Lisa entered the hall with Kate and the other human cadets. The room was packed with nearly 300 students from dozens of species. They formed a large circle around the central combat mat. At one end of the room stood a group of Vorthak instructors led by Commander Zexthul. "Cadets," the commander's voice boomed across the hall. "Yesterday's combat assessments revealed some interesting results. Today, we will conduct advanced training in proper military hierarchy and respect for authority." Lisa felt her muscles tense. She had a bad feeling about where this was heading. Commander Zexthul stepped onto the central mat. His black scales gleamed under the bright lights and his claws made scratching sounds as he flexed his fingers. "In the galactic military, understanding your place in the chain of command is essential. All species must learn to show proper respect to their superiors." The commander's yellow eyes scanned the crowd of cadets until they found Lisa. "Cadet Carter, step forward." Lisa's heart began beating faster, but she kept her face calm. She walked through the circle of cadets and stepped onto the mat. The hall became completely silent. Even the smallest whispers stopped. "Yesterday you performed adequately in combat exercises," Commander Zexthul said, circling around Lisa like a predator. "But combat skills mean nothing without proper discipline and respect for authority. Today, you will demonstrate the correct way to show submission to a superior officer." Lisa stood perfectly still in the center of the mat. She could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes watching her. The other human cadets looked worried. Kate's face had gone pale. Even some of the alien cadets seemed uncomfortable with what was happening. Commander Zexthul stopped directly in front of Lisa. At his full height, he towered over her. His shadow fell across her body and she could smell the metallic scent of his breath. This close, she could see every scar on his armor-like skin and the sharp points of his claws. When facing a superior Vorthak officer, the commander announced to the crowd, all cadets must demonstrate proper submission. This means lowering your eyes, bowing your head, and acknowledging your inferior status. Lisa looked up at him steadily. Her green eyes met his yellow ones without flinching. She did not bow her head or lower her gaze. The commander's expression darkened. Cadet Carter, you will bow your head now. Sir, with respect, Lisa replied in a clear voice that carried across the hall. Academy regulations state that cadets are required to show military courtesy, not species-based submission. I am showing proper military posture as taught in our handbook. A murmur went through the crowd. Lisa was technically correct. The official Academy rules did not require species-based submission rituals, but everyone knew that the Vorthak expected it anyway, and most cadets complied to avoid trouble. Commander Zexathol's claws extended further from his fingertips. The handbook does not account for the natural order of species hierarchy. Humans are newcomers to the galaxy. You must learn your place. He began to circle her again, this time closer. His presence was meant to intimidate, to make her feel small and helpless. Lisa had seen him use this technique on other cadets. Usually they began trembling and submitted within minutes, but Lisa had faced intimidation before. During her martial arts training on Earth, she had learned to control fear and use it as fuel for focus. Her breathing remained steady, and her posture stayed relaxed but ready. I can smell your fear, human, the commander hissed, leaning down so his face was close to hers. Your species may have some fighting ability, but you lack the warrior spirit of true military races. You are weak. Lisa felt anger starting to build in her chest, but she kept it controlled. Her martial arts masters had taught her that anger could be useful if channeled properly, but dangerous if it took control. Kneel, Cadet Carter, Commander Zexthal ordered. Show this academy what human submission looks like. The hall was so quiet that Lisa could hear her own heartbeat. She could see Kate in the crowd looking terrified. Other human cadets had expressions of helpless anger. The alien cadets watched with mixture of curiosity and sympathy. Lisa remained standing. Sir, I respectfully decline to kneel. I am a cadet of the Galactic Military Academy, not a prisoner or a pet. The commander's eyes flashed with rage. You dare to refuse a direct order from a superior officer? I follow lawful orders, sir. The Academy Charter guarantees equal treatment regardless of species origin. Commander Zexthal straightened to his full height. His claws were now fully extended, sharp as knives. Then perhaps you need a more direct lesson in military hierarchy. He stepped closer, invading Lisa's personal space completely. His shadow covered her entirely now. The message was clear to everyone watching. Submit or face the consequences. Lisa took a slow, deep breath and shifted her weight slightly. Her feet found a balanced stance and her hands remained loose at her sides. She looked up at the massive Vorthak officer with calm determination. I am ready for whatever lesson you wish to teach, sir, she said quietly. Commander Zexthal raised his right arm high above Lisa's head. His claws gleamed under the training hall lights like polished metal. The gesture was meant to show dominance, to force her to cower and submit. Every cadet in the hall had seen this display before. It always worked. Last chance, human, the commander growled. Bow your head and acknowledge your inferior status, or face the consequences of defying Vorthak authority. Lisa remained perfectly still. Her breathing was slow and controlled. Her green eyes never left the commander's yellow ones. She could feel the weight of his massive arm hanging over her, ready to come down and force her to the ground. But Lisa had spent 15 years learning to read opponents. She could see the tension in the commander's shoulders, the way his weight was distributed, the angle of his extended arm. Her martial arts instructors had taught her that every attack had a beginning, a middle, and an end. The key was to act during the beginning before the attack gained momentum. The commander's arm began to descend. He intended to grab Lisa's shoulder and force her to her knees in front of the entire academy. It was a move he had used countless times on cadets from dozens of species. None had ever resisted successfully. Lisa moved. Her right hand shot up and caught Commander Zexthal's wrist just as his clawed hand reached her shoulder level. Her fingers wrapped around his scaled forearm with surprising strength. The commander was so shocked by the interception that he hesitated for just a moment. That moment was all Lisa needed. She stepped forward and to the side. rotating her body while maintaining her grip on the commander's arm. Her left hand joined her right, creating a two-handed hold on his forearm. Then she dropped her center of gravity and used the commander's own downward momentum against him. The physics were simple but devastating. Commander Zexthul's massive body weight, combined with the force he had been using to intimidate Lisa, became the power source for her technique. She twisted his arm into an angle that Vorthak joints were not designed to handle. The sound of breaking bone echoed through the training hall like a gunshot. Commander Zexthul's elbow joint snapped with a wet, cracking noise that made several cadets gasp in horror. The natural armor that covered his scales provided no protection against the precise application of leverage and anatomical knowledge that Lisa had just demonstrated. But Lisa did not stop there. Instead of releasing the broken arm, she maintained her grip and straightened up. The commander's arm came with her, held in her hands like a twisted piece of metal. His elbow bent at an impossible angle, the joint completely destroyed. For a moment that seemed to last forever, Lisa stood in the center of the mat holding Commander Zexthul's shattered arm above her head. The expression on her face never changed from its calm, focused look. She might have been holding a trophy she had just won, not the broken limb of her superior officer. Commander Zexthul staggered backward, his yellow eyes wide with shock and pain. Green blood began to seep from the torn scales around his destroyed elbow. His mouth opened in a silent scream as his nervous system registered what had just happened to him. The training hall was completely silent. 300 cadets from dozens of species stared in absolute disbelief at what they had just witnessed. No one had ever seen a Vorthak officer injured by a cadet. It was unthinkable, impossible against the natural order of the galaxy. Lisa slowly lowered the commander's broken arm, but she did not release it. She continued to hold it in both hands, maintaining the leverage that kept him from pulling away. Her message was clear to everyone watching. She was in control now. "Sir," Lisa said in the same calm voice she had been using throughout the confrontation, "I believe your demonstration of Vorthak authority is complete." Commander Zexthul tried to speak, but only a low moan came from his throat. The pain from his shattered elbow was overwhelming his ability to think clearly. He had never experienced anything like this before. In his entire military career, no being had ever successfully resisted his intimidation tactics. Other Vorthak instructors finally snapped out of their shock and began moving toward the mat. But they moved slowly, carefully, as if approaching a dangerous wild animal. Lisa's display of power had changed the dynamic in the room completely. "Release him immediately," shouted Instructor Veltar, the second-ranking Vorthak in the academy. But even as he gave the order, his voice lacked the usual commanding tone that Vorthak officers used. Lisa looked at Instructor Veltar with the same calm expression. "Sir, I am currently providing medical stabilization for Commander Zexthul's injured arm. Moving it incorrectly could cause additional damage." It was a perfect military response. Lisa was following protocol for handling injured personnel while simultaneously making it clear that she was choosing to hold on to the commander's arm. She could release it anytime she wanted, but she was making the choice to maintain control. Kate and the other human cadets stared at Lisa with expressions of awe and terror. They knew their friend was strong, but this display of power was beyond anything they had imagined. Lisa had not just defeated a Vorthak officer, she had broken him and was now displaying the evidence like a war trophy. The alien cadets were equally stunned. Species that had been part of the galactic military for centuries were seeing something completely new. The hierarchy they had always known, with Vorthak at the top and newcomer species at the bottom, had just been turned upside down by a single human cadet. Academy medical personnel finally arrived, running into the hall with emergency equipment. They stopped short when they saw the scene on the mat. A human cadet was holding the broken arm of their most feared instructor, and he was completely helpless to do anything about it. "Cadet Carter," the lead medic said carefully, "we need to treat Commander Zexthul's injuries. Will you please release his arm?" Lisa nodded and gently lowered the commander's broken limb. As soon as she let go, he collapsed to his knees, cradling his destroyed elbow against his chest. The sight of the mighty Vorthak commander kneeling while a human cadet stood over him was something that none of the witnesses would ever forget. The medics quickly surrounded Commander Zexthul and began emergency treatment. As they worked, Lisa stepped back from the mat and stood at attention, her hands clasped behind her back in perfect military posture. "Cadet Carter," Instructor Veltar said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "You are under arrest for assault on a superior officer." Lisa looked at him calmly. "Sir, I was acting in self-defense according to Academy Regulations, Section 12.7. Commander Zexthul initiated physical contact without legal justification. I responded with appropriate force to protect myself from unlawful assault." The instructor opened his mouth to argue, but then stopped. Lisa was right, and everyone in the hall knew it. The Academy's own rules protected cadets from physical abuse, even from superior officers. The problem was that no one had ever been strong enough to defend themselves against a Vorthak before. The Academy medical team worked quickly to stabilize Commander Zexthul's shattered arm. They had to use a stretcher to carry him out of the training hall because he kept fainting from the pain. As they wheeled him away, his yellow eyes remained fixed on Lisa with a mixture of agony, rage, and something that looked almost like fear. After the commander was removed, Instructor Veltar ordered all cadets to return to their quarters immediately. The training hall emptied quickly, but Lisa could feel hundreds of eyes watching her as she walked out. Whispers followed her down the corridors, spreading the news of what had just happened to every corner of the Academy. "I cannot believe you actually did that," Kate whispered as they walked back to their room. "You broke his arm like it was nothing. How is that even possible?" Lisa remained quiet until they were safely behind their closed door. "Earth has higher gravity than most worlds," she finally explained. "Our bones and muscles are much denser than most species realize. Also, that technique uses leverage, not strength. I learned it when I was 12 years old." Kate sat down heavily on her bed. "Do you understand what you just did? You hurt a Vorthak commander in front of the entire Academy. They are going to throw you out of here, maybe even put you in prison." Before Lisa could respond, there was a sharp knock on their door. "Cadet Carter, report to the Commandant's office immediately," a voice ordered from outside. Lisa straightened her uniform and checked her appearance in the small mirror. She looked exactly the same as always, calm and composed. No one would guess that she had just broken a superior officer's arm 30 minutes earlier. The walk to the Commandant's office felt longer than usual. Lisa passed groups of cadets who stopped talking when they saw her. Some looked at her with admiration, others with fear. A few alien cadets actually stepped aside to let her pass, something that had never happened before. Commandant Crixnell was an ancient Vorthak with silver scales and wise old eyes. He had run the Academy for over 40 years and had seen cadets from hundreds of species. When Lisa entered his office, he was studying a data pad with her complete Academy record displayed on it. "Cadet Carter, sit down," he said without looking up. His voice was different from other Vorthak officers. It was calmer, more thoughtful. "I have been reading your file. Excellent grades, perfect discipline record, outstanding physical fitness scores. No previous incidents of violence or insubordination." Lisa sat in the chair across from his large desk. "Yes, sir." "I also have the medical report on Commander Zexthul's injuries," the Commandant continued. "Complex fracture of the elbow joint, torn ligaments, severe tissue damage. The medical staff says it was caused by a precision application of force that required extensive knowledge of Vorthak anatomy." Lisa remained silent. There was nothing she could say that would change the facts of what had happened. Commandant Crixnell finally looked up at her. "Tell me exactly what occurred in the training hall." Lisa gave a complete and accurate account of the incident. She described the commander's intimidation tactics, his demands for submission, and his attempt to physically force her to kneel. She explained how she had acted in self-defense when he reached for her. "And the technique you used?" the Commandant asked. "Basic martial arts, sir. I learned it on Earth for sport and fitness. I had no idea it would be so effective against Vorthak physiology." The old Commandant leaned back in his chair. "Cadet Carter, do you realize that you are the first being in Academy history to successfully resist a Vorthak intimidation display?" "No, sir, I did not know that. In 40 years of running this Academy, I have seen thousands of cadets face that same test. Every single one has submitted within minutes. Most of them were trembling with fear before the demonstration even began." He paused and studied her face. "But you showed no fear at all. Why?" Lisa thought about her answer carefully. "Sir, I was taught that fear is just information. It tells you that danger might be present, but it does not control your actions. I assessed the situation and determined that submission would be more dangerous than resistance. More dangerous how? If I had submitted, it would have established a pattern. Other instructors would have expected the same response in the future. Eventually, I would have been forced to accept treatment that violated Academy regulations and my own dignity. Commandant Crixenall nodded slowly. Interesting analysis, and probably accurate. He touched a control on his desk and the office door sealed shut. What I am about to tell you is classified information, Cadet Carter. Can I trust your discretion? Yes, sir. Commander Zexthul has been under investigation for the past 6 months. We have received complaints from cadets of multiple species about his training methods, excessive intimidation, physical contact without justification, and psychological abuse. But none of the complainants were willing to provide testimony because they were too afraid of retaliation. Lisa felt a cold sensation in her stomach. Sir, are you saying that what happened today was not an isolated incident? Correct. Commander Zexthul has been using his position to bully cadets for years. The Academy administration has been trying to gather evidence, but the victims were always too frightened to speak out officially. The Commandant stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the Academy grounds. Your actions today have provided us with undeniable evidence of his misconduct. More importantly, you have proven that Vorthak intimidation tactics are not invincible. Word of this incident is already spreading throughout the galactic military. What will happen to me, sir? Lisa asked. That depends on several factors. Technically, you were acting in self-defense according to Academy regulations. However, you seriously injured a superior officer, regardless of the circumstances. Some members of the Academy board will want you expelled or court-martialed. Lisa nodded. She had expected this possibility. However, the Commandant continued, there are others who believe your actions were justified and even necessary. The incident has forced us to confront problems in our training system that we have been ignoring for too long. He returned to his desk and sat down. I am going to make a recommendation to the Academy Board. You will be confined to quarters while we conduct a full investigation into Commander Zexithul's conduct. If our investigation confirms the pattern of abuse that we suspect, all charges against you will be dropped. And if the investigation does not confirm it, then you will face a court-martial for assaulting a superior officer. The Commandant's expression was serious but not unkind. However, I have been in the military for 60 years, Cadet Carter. I know misconduct when I see it. Commander Zexthul brought his fate upon himself. Lisa stood up and saluted. Thank you for explaining the situation, sir. One more thing, Cadet Carter. Word of your demonstration has reached the highest levels of Galactic Military Command. There are generals and admirals who are very interested in meeting the human who broke a Vorthak commander's arm and held it like a trophy. Regardless of the outcome of this investigation, your life at this academy will never be the same. As Lisa walked back to her quarters under escort, she thought about the Commandant's words. She had not intended to become famous or to change anything about the academy. She had simply refused to be bullied and had defended herself when attacked. But sometimes the simplest actions had the biggest consequences. Behind her, the academy was buzzing with activity as news of the incident continued to spread. For the first time in galactic history, a human had proven that Earth's newest species might be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 3 weeks after the incident in the training hall, Lisa was released from quarters confinement. The academy investigation had uncovered exactly what Commandant Crixenall had suspected. 47 cadets from 18 different species came forward with complaints about Commander Zexthul's abusive behavior. Some had been too frightened to report it before, but Lisa's actions had given them courage to speak out. The news of her confrontation with the Vorthak commander had spread far beyond the academy. Galactic news networks had picked up the story, and it was being discussed in military headquarters across dozens of worlds. The headline that appeared most often was Human Cadet Breaks Vorthak Commander's Arm, Holds It Like Trophy. Lisa walked through the academy corridors on her first day back, and everything was different. Cadets who had previously ignored her now stepped aside respectfully. Some even saluted her, though she was still just a cadet like them. The Vorthak instructors who remained at the academy kept their distance and spoke to her with careful politeness. It is like you are a celebrity, Kate observed as they ate breakfast in the mess hall. Look around. Half the cadets in here are staring at you. Lisa glanced around and saw that Kate was right. Cadets from multiple species were looking at her with expressions ranging from admiration to curiosity to fear. She had become a symbol of something larger than herself, though she was not entirely sure what. "I heard that General Morrison from Earth Command is coming to visit you personally," Kate continued. "And Admiral Thixar of the Centauri Defense Force wants to recruit you for special operations. You're famous across the entire galaxy now." Lisa continued eating her breakfast quietly. Fame was not something she had wanted or expected. She had simply stood up for herself when someone tried to bully her. But apparently that simple act had challenged assumptions that the galactic military had held for centuries. After breakfast, Lisa reported to her new assignment. The Academy had moved her to an advanced combat tactics course usually reserved for final-year cadets. Her instructor was Captain Mordan, a Vorthak officer with a reputation for fairness and respect for all species. "Cadet Carter," Captain Mordan said as she entered the classroom. "Welcome to Advanced Combat Leadership. I trust you will find the material challenging." The classroom was smaller than the regular lecture halls with only 20 students. Most of them were senior cadets from various species, all considered the top fighters in their classes. When Lisa entered, they all turned to look at her with intense interest. "As you may know," Captain Mordan continued, "Cadet Carter recently demonstrated some interesting techniques in a training exercise. Today she will be teaching the rest of you about human martial arts and defensive tactics." Lisa was surprised by this assignment, but she adapted quickly. She had been teaching martial arts to younger students back on Earth for several years. She stepped to the front of the classroom and began explaining the basic principles of leverage, balance, and using an opponent's strength against them. "The technique is not about being stronger than your opponent," she explained to the mixed group of alien cadets. "It is about understanding anatomy, physics, and timing. Any species can learn these methods with proper training." Over the following weeks, Lisa's advanced combat class became the most popular course at the Academy. Cadets from all species wanted to learn human fighting techniques. The methods she taught emphasized intelligence and skill over raw strength, which appealed to smaller species who had always felt disadvantaged in physical confrontations. The success of her teaching led to other opportunities. Lisa was invited to speak at strategy conferences, demonstrate tactics for visiting military officials, and advise on new training programs. The shy cadet who had simply wanted to complete her military education had become one of the most influential figures at the Academy. Commander Zexthul eventually returned to duty after his arm healed, but he was assigned to a desk job in logistics. He never spoke to Lisa directly, but she sometimes caught him watching her from across the Academy with those yellow eyes. The expression on his face was hard to read, but it no longer contained the arrogant confidence he had once displayed. Other Vorthak instructors began changing their teaching methods as well. The intimidation tactics that had been standard for centuries were quietly discontinued. Cadets reported feeling more comfortable asking questions and expressing opinions. The Academy's overall atmosphere became less fearful and more focused on actual learning. 6 months after the incident, Lisa received news that would change her life again. She had been selected for early graduation and immediate assignment to the Elite Galactic Response Unit. This was the most prestigious posting available to Academy graduates, typically reserved for officers with years of experience. "Congratulations, Cadet Carter," Commandant Crixenel said during their final meeting, or should I say Lieutenant Carter. "Your promotion and assignment are effective immediately." Lisa accepted her new rank insignia with quiet pride. "Thank you, sir. I will do my best to represent the Academy well. I have no doubt about that. Your actions here have already changed how the galactic military thinks about leadership, discipline, and respect. The response unit specifically requested you because they need officers who can think independently and stand up for what is right." As Lisa prepared to leave the Academy, cadets from dozens of species came to wish her well. Many of them told her how her example had inspired them to be braver and more confident. Some admitted that they had been considering dropping out before seeing her stand up to Commander Zexthul. Kate hugged her goodbye at the transport station. "Promise me you will stay in touch, and try not to break any more arms unless you absolutely have to." Lisa smiled at her roommate. "I will try to keep the arm breaking to a minimum." The transport ship that took Lisa to her new assignment was filled with officers from multiple species, all heading to various postings throughout the galaxy. During the journey, she met Commander Janet Stone, another human officer who would be serving with the response unit. I heard about what you did at the Academy, Commander Stone said during dinner. Word is that you single-handedly changed how the galactic military operates. That is quite an accomplishment for someone who just wanted to graduate. I never intended to change anything, Lisa replied. I just refused to be bullied. Sometimes that is exactly what change requires. Someone willing to say no when everyone else is saying yes. The response unit could use more officers with that kind of backbone. When Lisa arrived at response unit headquarters, she found herself assigned to a mixed-species team led by Colonel Harris, a veteran human officer. The team included beings from 8 different worlds, each bringing unique skills and perspectives to their missions. Welcome to Alpha Team, Lieutenant Carter, Colonel Harris said during her first briefing. We handle the galaxy's most difficult situations, the ones that require diplomacy, strategy, and sometimes controlled violence. Your reputation for thinking clearly under pressure makes you a perfect fit. Lisa looked around the briefing room at her new teammates. There was respect in their eyes, but also curiosity. They had all heard the story of the human cadet, who broke a Vorthak commander's arm and held it like a trophy. Now they wanted to see what she could do as part of their elite unit. What is our first mission, sir? Lisa asked. Colonel Harris smiled. Funny you should ask. We have been requested to mediate a dispute between the Vorthak High Command and the Alterian Defense Council. Apparently, they specifically asked for the human who taught their instructors about proper respect for subordinates. Lisa nodded, understanding the irony. Her act of self-defense at the Academy had made her famous throughout the galaxy. Now she would be using that reputation to help solve conflicts and maintain peace between species who had been fighting for generations. As she settled into her new role, Lisa realized that her journey was just beginning. The moment when she had refused to bow to Commander Zexthul had been about personal dignity and self-respect. But it had become something much larger, a symbol that even the smallest being could stand up to bullies and make a difference. The galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do next, and Lisa Carter, the cadet who had snapped an alien officer's arm and held it like a trophy, was ready to show them.